Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bad Podcast. I'm Bill.
This is Armin.
Andy here.
Dan.
And today is episode 5. We're actually going to be going through a little bit more of the Mournival Events book, catching up on some of those rights, and then we're going to jump into the Legion overview of the Alpha Legion, which I think will be pretty sweet. I also, just before we get started, just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors. Tony at Hammerhead Games. You can check him out. Lots of cool stuff, templates, trays. Link is in the description. And then Matt from Pop Goes the Monkey. He has a lot of wicked upgrade bits on the Shapeways store there, so definitely check him out too. Link is in the description as well. So we were kicking off. I know we skipped over the Assault Company, Breacher, and Veteran ones to jump over to those Legion-specific rights.
Oh, before we start, so is it only rumor, or are they actually bringing it to Battlescribe? The Mournival rules.
It's being brought over. There's a guy who's doing the work to port it over.
So it's gonna make it official.
Well,
like
Battlescribe official. Yeah.
It'll probably be like a checkbox that you check,
experimental. Yeah. At the beginning when you fill out your thing, yeah. But it just makes it feel like it's more real now if Battlescribe is putting it into their data sheets.
Got it, yeah, for sure.
I think right now they have Necron and the Elder?
The 30k ones?
The fan-made stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
All right.
Okay, where do we switch? The Legion Assault Company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Legion Assault Company. What we got models equipped with jump packs, can use them in both the movement and assault phases.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. Legion veterans are going to be equipped with jump packs for 5 points a model.
This is what I like.
They may also take combat shields for 3 points a model, including only the sergeant. So
make some Vanguard vets.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Models equipped with jump packs may deploy deep strike in the first game turn.
I don't understand that. Sorry. It says including only the sergeant?
You might be only able to give just the sergeant. I think that's what it's supposed to mean. Units equipped in this way.
It looks like a typo.
I think it's a typo.
It's probably including the sergeant, yeah.
Including the sergeant, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
And then models equipped with jump packs may deploy by D-Strike on the first game turn. Models deploying in this way gain +1 to cover saves, or 6 plus cover save in the open until the start of their next turn. So, yeah.
How does this compare to do Blood Angels have one?
Yeah, it's similar.
Similar? Okay.
The only difference is this one, it gives you vets can take jump packs.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the only difference. Oh, and I mean the assault thing with the jump packs, right, which Sanguinius did anyways if you took them, but
okay,
it just seems like a better right all around.
This one?
Yeah.
Well, you've got the Night Raptors and Dark Furies, compulsory troops.
Loctaris as well, the Storm Squad, the Ultramarine. Dark Furies as well. For
I don't even know if that's a limitation, having to take Night Raptors or Dark Furies as comp troops. It's if you're building a fluffy list and you want to rock that, it's probably what you want to go for anyways.
Yeah.
So they're comp
Legion, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to get a little ahead here, but so yeah, they're comp troops. But the other one I said, Loctaris Storm Squads and Dark Fury Squads are Legion Assault support squads. So they're not actually compulsory, right?
No, Night Raptors and Dark Furies are. The Ultramarines guys aren't even in. Oh, no. Yeah,
They are. They're just
Night Raptors or Dawnbreakers or Luktars or Dark Furies may be taken as support squads.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you take them as compulsories if you can, though? Isn't that better?
Well, Legion Assault support squads are different, right? They're like regular support squads with jump packs. So you can rock like plasma guns on your jump pack guys. You can have flamers, melta-guns. That's in part of like as you go deeper into the book. That's one of the unit selections. Is a Legion Assault support squad.
Oh, so we jumped one thing. We jumped one. It says at least one Legion support squad must be taken.
Yeah.
So what it's saying is that you can use a Night Lords or a Dawnbreaker or the Ultramarine unit instead of the support squad.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Oh, okay. I see. So you could have 3. So if you were running Night Lords, you would have 3 Night Raptor squads instead of 2 and 1, or vice versa. Okay, that makes sense.
I think they just mean that they have to take a third unit, and it has to be a support squad.
But if you're one of these,
yes,
okay, that makes sense. And then you have to have an independent character with the jump pack. That makes sense. Okay, okay. So, I mean, it seems really good, nice and fluffy. I mean, if it's better than the Blood Angel one, that kind of sucks, right? But I mean, I don't know if the Blood Angel one will promote people to run assault troops, right? Like this might actually, because they seem pretty nice, especially putting them on veterans. That sounds good. Like veterans are great.
Well, they still have bolters, right? So they're still jumping around and shooting.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And 5 points isn't unreasonable to pay for that.
I think what they were trying to get at is like, is it the Reavers from Sons of Horus can buy like jump packs? They're like, I
think so, yeah.
They're veteran style units that they have. I think there was just them trying to streamline it so that people can just make their own vets kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
that last limitation for that Rite of War is your independent character has to be equipped with a jump pack, which if that's the style of army you're running, you're probably going to do that anyways. So
yeah,
exactly. Not really a limitation. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm trying to find Sons of Horus here, right here. Reavers, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Reavers can have jump packs. 50 points for the squad. So it doesn't really matter if you have 5 or 15. It's 50 points.
Well, that's you know what? That's on par for what that upgrade is then for that, right? That's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So
reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess the next one.
Yeah.
Legion Breacher Company. All models in hardened armor can reroll armor rolls of 1. Models equipped with artificer armor do not benefit from this rule.
I like that. I like
cool.
They actually added that note.
Yeah, but that's really good.
Yeah. All models equipped with boarding shields can reroll invulnerable save rolls of 1.
Makes it tough.
Yeah.
That's the one that always gets you too. You play on bad enough times, that battle gets you every time. Just ask Brady.
Graviton guns can be equipped with suspensors for plus 5 points per model.
It makes it so the breachers can move and fire, right? Like grav guns are great, but the fact that they're heavies makes them a really weird choice for breachers.
Well, they're heavy blasts, right? So it's terrible.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of like, okay, it's a cool weapon, but breachers are meant to breach. Literally in the word. They're not like, I get you could also use them for defense. Like you sit there, and then you fire, sure, but mostly like you think they're used for breaching, right? So you want to be able to
the suspensor web makes it 9 inches if you move, right?
If you move, yeah. So I mean that's short range, but
I think a melta gun would do better.
Can they buy a melta gun?
Yeah.
Breachers, yeah.
Okay.
Breachers, yeah.
And then you're rolling a 12-inch assault weapon, which is better, I think.
Yeah. Okay. What about plasma? Even better.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you're getting preferred. Extra insurance.
There's a breacher. You'll see. They talk about breacher support squads, and those are the ones that are support squads with shields, basically.
It's good.
But
nice. It says Legion heavy support squads, maybe equipped with suspensor web. Same thing. Compulsory troops must be.
So there is one more part before you go further, Armin.
Sorry,
so any infantry unit can be equipped, not jump infantry, can be equipped with hardened armor for 2 points per model. So
hardened armor vets, man, would be awesome.
I was just thinking that too, actually.
I was reading the wrong one, so ignore what I just said.
Would you, to be fluffy, would they have to be like chunky, like Mark III or 2 with the old Chaos Space Marine backpacks?
Oh, Mark III for sure.
And then the Void backpacks?
Void backpacks. Yeah, you could rock those.
Honestly, 2 points is like a no-brainer, especially if you're playing Zone Mortalis.
And you get rerolls of ones.
The Void. Like, it's like
2 points for rerolling your armor of 1, like Dan said there.
And if it's open to the Void, you ignore the rending rule, right? And that rule, we have found out you would equip everything, which kind of makes sense for this, because if you're planning to breach a starship or a station or something, you're probably going to be fighting in the Void, because what are you doing? First thing you're doing is you're probably going to blow a bunch of holes in the ship, and then you're going to land in there. So yeah, most likely you'll be open to the Void or some kind of poison or plasma or something. So you want your breachers and your Marines to probably be ready for that kind of stuff. So it makes sense. I mean, you definitely get
negative though. There's a negative to having Void. There's a negative to having hardened armor. It affects your charge roll and your run roll.
Yep. So. Yeah, you're slower. No. Right. Breacher and Phalanx Warden or Medusan Immortals must be taken as compulsory. Okay. Nice. At least 1 Legion Breacher squads must be taken. Phalanx Wardens or Immortals may be taken as Legion Breacher support squads. Oh, Breacher support squad. Sorry. So is a Breacher support squad exactly like a Breacher squad, except they're able to get...
They all have the plasmas, all flamers, all whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So they just have the... Are they more expensive?
Unit?
Oh, yeah.
And it's an only 5-man unit?
I think it's a 5-man, but I think you can
upgrade it up to 10.
Add 2.
Yeah.
Mark Meekin there, the Aussie from LVO, he was making a Legion Breacher support squad with plasmas.
Honestly,
it was going to be awesome.
I ordered a bunch of plasmas and Breacher shields.
I bet they will be
literally
awesome.
I was thinking about this, and I was like, Dark Angels would have something like this, or Alpha Legion, they would have too. But
I want to run something like that with my wolves, just so I can get the bonus from my priests.
See, but I was thinking Alpha Legion would never need to breach, because if Alpha Legion are breaching, you've probably already lost.
So
yeah, they're already there.
So my Ultramarines, because I equip them with the power swords, my breachers. That kind of makes them a lot better for survivability. The re-rollings of the ones and invulnerables one.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to try out at one point.
Yeah. Oh, it would be awesome.
What else we got here?
This next point, it will be perfect for your chaplain, Armin. The detachment must include an independent character model equipped with a boarding shield.
That's right.
It's right up your right up your alley.
We'll talk about Alpha Legion. We'll talk about that rule. But I feel like maybe people don't know why I have that boarding shield on that chaplain. And if you've ever met me in tournaments or anything like that, I don't use it anymore. But years ago, and I think that's before 7.5, right? Breacher shields were defensive grenades, and defensive grenades were if you had a model equipped with a defensive grenade, the entire unit was considered having it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I literally was like, okay, I either buy a refractor field or a boarding shield, which in close combat are exactly the same. Yeah, I use the inability to have I'll lose the ability to get to close combat weapons, but you're not going to be shooting at him, because if you're shooting at a lone chaplain that usually runs with Alfarius and Terminators, I've already lost that unit anyways. And it just made so much sense to have those defensive grenades, because when you have like big units of like Butchers charge with Angron and you're negating their charge bonuses, like that's a huge deal, or at least the attack on the charge bonus, right? That used to be a huge deal. Well, I have this beautiful model that I can't really use now, because I still use him because I have him, but the boarding shield's kind of useless. It's actually worse than a refractor field, because the refractor field, at least if I didn't have the boarding shield, I could give him a power dagger, and then
they're the same cost. That's why it seems worse, right?
Exactly, right.
It's in the realm of rule of cool now.
He looks really nice. Where is he? Where do I have him? I don't know. You guys have seen pictures, but I really like the way he looks. Like, it's an awesome. Like, breacher shields are just so awesome, so cool. Okay, let's move on.
Next one, Legion Veteran Company. So this one, the opponent gains +1 victory point if all veteran tactical squads, or Rampager, Terror, or Reaver squads taken as troops are removed from play. Okay,
that's fine.
The opponent gains +1 victory point if the Delegatus is removed from play.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the Legion Veteran Tactical Squads, or Rampager, Terror, or Reaver squads, may be taken as troops. And we also have Legion Heavy Support Squads, may be equipped with Suspensor Webs for 5 points a model.
This is what makes that right better.
So for limitations, is there anything we want to touch on those, the effects?
Very much like Pride.
Pretty straightforward, yeah. I was kind of looking at that.
It just Pride with heavy supports get suspensor webs.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Basically.
Which can be great. Like, can't downplay that.
So
it's more of a veteran thing, where Pride you can grab Terminators as well, right?
Yeah.
This definitely just focuses on veterans.
Limitations: compulsory troops must be Legion Veteran Tactical or Rampager, Terror, or Reaver squads. And then the detachment must include a Delegatus, who must be the Warlord unless a higher ranked officer is also present. So
it's a nice little one. I mean, heavy support squad with Suspensor Webs are good, especially in Centurion games. So.
Yeah, it just focuses more on like the veteran units of a lot of armies, right?
Yeah.
So
there's a character that they made in here. They call him a gunnery sergeant, or gunnery sergeant, and he can give different ammo types to heavy support units.
Yeah.
So we'll get to it, but yeah. So that's what I think of when I think of using this. Right, is using the alternative
ammunition
ammo.
What weapons can you use it for?
He changes the ammo type for autocannons,
missiles,
heavy bolters, and missile launchers.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And it's not significant points. I think it's 1 to 3 points per model that you're upgrading with the different ammo type. It's pretty good. One of the cool things is, I guess because these are, Centurion mainly, it does let you kind of play around with your list if you want to run more of a veteran-orientated squad, especially with Centurion games going up to 2K. You can probably have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
The big thing, too, is it really encourages people to build lists that you may feel have existed at one time or another that actually you can't build legally through the regular means. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted like an all breacher army, or like veterans the way, like they definitely just give you a little more flexibility. I mean, some of them are probably maybe a little better than they should be. Some of them are maybe a little worse than you'd think they would be, but honestly, like that's not really the point, right? The point is that it gives you the ability to build those lists that you really want to build.
Well, it gives like like when I think of the Breacher Rite, it kind of sounds like the Iron Hands Rite. There's the Hatred of Iron, I think it's called, which makes the Medusans troops. So you basically have a Breacher army. And I think what this is doing is making those certain rights that are only specific to certain legions, making it kind of available to everyone else. Like the book already kind of does that, but it doesn't do it to a grand scale of like every right being just slightly like
That's right.
other legions.
That's right, because let's say you're Death Guard and you want to run a Breacher army. Maybe that's a bad example because they do run lots of Breachers, but maybe you're Space Wolves, right? And you want to run Breachers because you're going to be doing a lot of boarding actions. Yeah. But if you're building it normally, you still need to get 2 tactical squads, right? And this allows you to not do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually, and then your support squads, you're like, well, it wouldn't be cool. Like you think that a Space Marine, they're like breaching and they all have breachers, and then the support squad behind them is like, we've got big ass plasma guns. Let's take shields too. Why not, right? If it's available, like you're playing Shattered Legions, then maybe you don't have the availability to equip your entire army with 50 breachers shields, right? But
there's a lot of themes to these rights, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Which I think is pretty awesome. Like,
so what I like what they did with these rights is they stipulated that you have to use their made up units in the rights.
Yeah.
So it makes it so you have to use their rules anyways for like everything.
Well, they give you the option, which is awesome, right? Like,
I mean, honestly, again, if you don't want to, you could say I don't want to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
I just like that they actually put it in there.
Yeah. See, there was something on your there's something in your room too, Dan, flying around. I just saw it.
For those who can't see on the screen, there's like this little bug thing or something that just hovers around Armin's room, and it's been there forever. But
it's been 2
apparently
weeks,
Dan has one too.
It just came from my screen to your screen. That's all it happened.
There we go. Yeah.
Or wherever. I don't know where you are, Armin, but.
Well, for now, like we'll probably stop and jump into some of the meat and potatoes now. Do some Legion review, but we will continue to go through the Mournival book. And,
yeah, that was the rest of the right.
Like I know there's a whack of exotic weapons, ranged weapons, all sorts of stuff. New psychic powers, a bunch of rights for the Durian mode here, or Decurion mode. It's like a kill team style. Really, really cool though. Just they've kind of gone all out. So a big thanks to the Mournival Events Group for throwing it together. It's well worth the price if you can get one of the hard copy books. And if not, the PDF are available online. I would definitely suggest to check it out.
Yep.
We're going to have the link, right?
Yeah, link will be in the description, so you can check it out.
I think it's on our Facebook page, too.
I believe so, yep.
Yeah.
No, awesome.
So what do we want to do?
I'll put us back to the Brady Bunch, and we'll kick into like an Alpha Legion overview.
Okay, we're going to start with,
Alpha
Legion.
Yeah, I got a couple little questions here that I think will kind of help some of the listeners get to know where you're at with Alpha Legion and just what kind of things you have to offer.
Well, I'll kind of start from the beginning. So I was born in... No, I'm just joking. We're going to do... I'll start at the beginning. 1892... when we started this, playing 30k, right? I didn't actually know what I wanted to play, so I just picked a really cool color scheme, and I wasn't sure if I was 100% sold on it. So I picked a color scheme that I actually don't use now. They just sit on my shelf. Maybe I'll take some pictures too, so you guys can see. And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do Sons of Horus or Alpha Legion. So then I had kind of decided that I wanted to do Alpha Legion because they were kind of teal looking, but not really shiny, not metallic. But then people kept confusing them for Sons of Horus. And so I decided, I want to do them as Sons of Horus. And then I think Forge World came out with the Venator and the color scheme, the blue-green. And as soon as I saw it, like I saw that tank and I just fell in love. And probably around the same time, I'm thinking I was reading Legion, and I just knew that was going to happen. Like Alpha Legion was the army that I wanted to play. I've already known the rules because I've played them quite a bit, and I really liked them. I felt they were pretty competitive. That's kind of how I started painting them. Competitive-wise, honestly, like if anybody here that's listening, if you guys want to ask questions, feel free to message. If you do want us to discuss your questions as well, next week too, I think we kind of talked about it. We'll take like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as long as we need to answer questions, point out comments, anything that you guys want to point, we'll kind of cover next week. So feel free to put comments down, or if you want to specifically talk to any of us, feel free to message and say, hey, Armin, why do you do this? Or what is your idea behind this? Or you're doing this wrong, because that has happened before as well. Alpha Legion. Okay, so what are we going to start here with Alpha Legion?
So you would say the Venator is what drew you to the Legion?
Well, it was
on
the
top
color,
of like fluff, the color scheme and everything else.
The color scheme, yeah. And honestly, like I really loved, like I just love the idea that, and we kind of joked about it earlier, but if you see Alpha Legion attacking you, you've probably already lost, right? Because nobody actually knows much about them. And I know lots of people. I actually read this Reddit rant about a guy that he spent probably 3 pages bitching about the Alpha Legion, about how everything works perfectly for them, but honestly, it's story writing. You literally read every other book and every other Legion, and same thing happens. Look at the White Scars. They're so amazing at everything. But if you actually keep reading, like Jagatai Khan talks about it, and he says, at first, all his tactics worked perfectly, but he's up against Emperor's Children, he's up against Sons of Horus, so they adapt to his tactics. So eventually, same thing will happen with the Alpha Legion too, right? Like, yeah, they surprised Terra, they surprised Dorn, they surprised all these legions, the Raven Guard, but then they have also adapted so that it's not as easy for the Alpha Legion to just, infiltrate them all the time and just be there all the time, right? So, I mean, at the beginning, yeah, they're really cool, but then they, all the legions are technically at par, or they're supposed to be, right? They have their things that they're good at. The thing I like about the Alpha Legion is story. Yes, I love their fluff. I love how they think they're the good guys, how they're really trying to help out, but they're tragically not, they don't technically ever succumb to chaos, from what I understand from the story. They stole the gene seed, spoilers. They stole the gene seed so they can, that's the one. Yeah, that's exactly the one.
Yeah.
So they can make more Marines even 10,000 years into the future. They've apparently been eradicated 3 times, I think, during that time, and every time the Council of Terra believes they're dead, they end up coming back. So, I mean, I really like their Legion. I really like the rules. I don't really like the 2 Primarchs personally, and how they're weaker. I guess it would make sense because all the Primarchs are made out of the warp, right? So if
Heresy.
the amount of warp you push into a Primarch makes them so strong, then if you have to split that warp into 2, I guess they're slightly weaker. Maybe you look at it like that. Sure,
2 sides
maybe
of the same coin, right?
They're a little bit weaker, yeah. But I definitely, that's kind of what drew me into them. Really, is that espionage, and they're still Marines, right? Yeah. So it's not like you're like, oh, they're hiding behind. No, they're still Marines. They're still the toughest, fighting.
Gotta say,
nice. In the galaxy, right? So
I really enjoyed Legion myself.
It was a good book.
It was awesome. It was interesting because it wasn't actually, if you read it, a lot of it didn't go into the Alpha Legion. Most of it was about the specialists and the army. And I know, Andy, you would like it because of that as well. And I really did, that you believed those characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least I did at the time. There was a few corny things. I think it was because it was one of the first books written, but I thought it was really well. It drew me in. I loved it, and a lot of their short stories and stories afterwards that I read, I really enjoyed too. The Alpha Legion ones. So,
nice.
Yeah, definitely worth a read.
What's your favorite right to use with the Alpha Legion?
So
to maximize, right? Like, what do you like? Like, if you know Armin, he plays hard, but he plays
I like to play
game.
hard. Yeah, and I like to play people who play hard, right?
Yeah.
I know where my Alpha Legion stand. I know which armies I can beat and which armies I'm going to have a lot of trouble with. I personally like you talk about right, sure.
Yeah.
I like Alfarius, right? So I really like him. So because I use him, I want to run the Larnian Terminators and I want to run veterans. So I run Pride of the Legion, right? I really like that because it gives me the ability to run those as troops and not spend points on tactical Marines. Unfortunately, majority of the games that you play from the book aren't kill point games. I think they're about half-half.
Yeah.
So I find that the kill point games I don't do terrible at because I don't have those troops. And if we do play objective games, there's only one mission where you need lots of troops, right? Majority of the missions are you get the one objective that you have to take in the opponent's zone and deny them yours, right? And so with that, I only really need one troop to survive, and both veterans and my Terminators score. So that's the right I really enjoy using for a majority of my games. But when I do play, my opponent has to understand that if they play that army like they're playing a hard Alpha Legion list.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I can attest to that for sure. I think everybody here has had to go against the Alpha Legion at one point. So.
Oh yes.
What would your? Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I was gonna say I failed at them, and now Armin uses my models to bolster his army.
That's right. Like, I literally do not have a single tactical Marine painted. I have 10 on the go, but they've been on the go for about 6 months now. And I just wanted to play some tactical Marines, so I borrowed Dan's, I think 30 Marines I have of yours that are now, I use them as tactical Marines. And you can tell they're slightly different color, yeah. And his guns are different color too, but it works really well. That's
nice. There we go. There's the boarding shield guy.
The infamous chaplain.
Yeah, the infamous chaplain, yeah.
So called out so many times.
I just want to mention something. That fist, I got that from Forge World. I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. That fist. And if you actually look really closely, I don't know if the picture does it justice, but inside the fist, you can see his hand holding the mechanism.
Yeah. It's the Artificer style, the character upgrade pack. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got exposed inner palm.
Yeah. Super awesome model. I used the Kelth chaplain. Yeah. Give him the fist. Has to do a lot of work around the. Yeah, I swapped his head. Had to do a lot of work around his arm because it didn't fit perfectly, and then the boarding shield as well. So it's
awesome.
It definitely it fits my army ish. But yeah. So you were going to ask another one?
I was going to say, yeah. What Legion specific unit would be your favorite?
Not including a Primarch.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Just your other units available.
I love the Terminators. Right, the Larnian Terminators are really, really cool. I don't think I think they're properly costed, right, compared to the regular Terminators. Like if I compare them to Legion Terminators, you pay extra points for that weapon skill. You pay extra points for the Volkite weapon. What I really like about them is they do get stubborn. Doesn't always come in handy because they're usually with my Primarch or Chaplain, so they're both fearless. But I do like that the character, the Harrower, the unit Sergeant, starts with 3 attacks base, right? So that's really cool because that's a lot of attacks because he's got 3 base, and then you give him a Power Fist, and then because he's a Sergeant, you can give him a Power Dagger, and then he gets that 4 attacks, and then the charge he's got 5, which is actually like a Centurion.
Really good, yeah.
Right? So that's really, really nice. So when you attack with weapon skill 5, they can definitely do quite well in combat. I mean, other than that, really, they're probably my favorite. I've used Headhunters last couple of games that I played. I've always found competitively, I found that they did lack. They're just a little overpriced. I know they've kind of changed them a little. They lower their points and they get combat bolters automatically, and of course preferred enemy. Do they get preferred enemy?
Preferred infantry.
Why am I not seeing that? Oh, it's in the FAQ. Thank you. Yeah. So that makes them really, really good. Again, I think points for points, I think Seekers are better because they're more versatile because they've got the AP2 weapons, where the Headhunters are the Bane Strike ammunition, right? If the Bane Strike ammunition was like Rending, I think I would definitely go with the Headhunters. But because they're not, I would say competitively, not my favorite choice, but I use them for fun, and I actually had a lot of success with them in like Centurion games and Zone Mortalis games, and they definitely feed the fluff of the army quite well. So I do like them as well. Personally, I like the Larnian Terminators, but the Headhunters I do like, and I love the models too. Like that's one thing I do like. I do use those models as my veterans because I really like. I like the shoulder pads. I like the chest. I like the head. Right.
Well, the whole army looks great on the field, right?
Yeah.
Even when you display it too, it's such a unique color. So.
Yeah, and I mean mine are painted with the green and blue, right? So they depending on how you look at them, they're slightly different. So it's kind of nice.
I wonder why they did that when they talk about them being purple in the Legion.
I don't know. They kind of switched that, right? Because they're purple in Legion, but then if you actually listen further down the road in books, they don't mention the purple again, right? Even on the cover of Legion, they're like purple, right? Yeah. So you're right. It's kind of weird.
That's like the old school color form too.
Yeah,
I think so too. So
homage to the old artwork, maybe.
Well, maybe it was just because they're too close to Emperor's Children. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm definitely glad that they're blue-green as opposed to purple. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, nothing against purple, but I definitely like the way they look now. Again, that Venator, when I saw the paint job, I was like, yes, that's the army I want to paint.
Yeah.
It was definitely challenging to get that color scheme right and do that, but yeah.
Well, back in the day, just to touch on your color scheme, right? Like contrast didn't exist, and I know contrast you can actually get that off Legion like dual spray quite nice and easy, but you had to use Tamiya clears, didn't you?
I still do. I won't go from them because that's how I've painted, but yeah. So just quickly to go over it a little bit, I do silver, black primer, and then I do a silver paint, but I paint them with silver. So I do zenith highlights, brighter on top, darker on the bottom, from the bottom. And then I do lots of Tamiya colors. So Tamiya colors are a little challenging if you guys have used them. To push them through your airbrush, you have to make sure that you use extenders and thinners, or else they will retarders and extenders. Yeah. Because they used to plug up my airbrush. Like I used to spray and then have to clean out the airbrush all the time. And then I found a Tamiya retarder as well that works quite well. And then it just gives me that work time with it. So it definitely is a process. Like I have a mix of blue green that I make myself from the Tamiya blues and greens that I do a base coat on. And then from the side, I do a green. From the top, I do a blue. And then, the other way around. From the bottom is blue, the top is a little green, and then the top, I do another silver with more just blue. So if you look at them straight from the top, they look blue, but then as you kind of come down, they look green, and then a dark blue on the bottom, because usually the bottom is a little bit darker silver. So then you have to seal it, and then you have to paint over it. And usually when you seal something, like painting over it is a little challenging because you have to make sure to put a couple of extra coats because you can't brush on Tamiya. Like it doesn't look the same.
No.
So you have to make sure that if you make a mistake painting, you got to be able to clean it up. So yeah.
I know GW made some clears now as well.
Well, the contrast, right?
Well, on top of that, they have a clear range too.
Oh, do they?
And they actually do quite the same kind of job as with like the Tamiyas. Maybe not as intricate as how you just said it, but I'm sure with working around with different metallics and whatnot, you can get this similar result.
And I mean, there's lots of different ways too. I've heard people like will mix like metallic stuff into their colors, and yeah, I've heard many different ways to do it. I definitely
like the ones I did. I don't know if you guys can actually see it, but I kind of just I sprayed them metallic blue, and then I literally just sprayed a green Tamiya clear over top, just like right from the top. So when you look straight down at them, they look almost like emerald, but as soon as you go to like twist them over, so you're looking this way, it's dark blue. So, but it's not as intricate as Armin's is. But
honestly,
it looks good. So
yeah,
right,
yeah, that color scheme, that metallic blue, is really nice.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. They're probably the only reason I wanted to play them was just to push myself into painting something outside of my comfort zone. So
nice.
I don't know. Do you want to maybe just quickly go over the Legion rules and stuff?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah. I was going to say you should do kind of like a breakdown of the rules and maybe touch base on how you use that for like your list building.
So I think like mutable tactics is their main rule, and then they have the martial hubris. So if the enemy destroys more units, then they gain a victory point. So you're going to give up a victory point there if they do. But mutable tactics is awesome. So they have an ability, if you don't know, to basically pick at the start of the game a rule that everybody with Adeptus Astartes gets. And this is different than picking a rule when you're building your army, because it's way better. You see your opponent, you know what you're fighting, you get to pick a rule. And I mean, a lot of people will build their army around this rule, and I tend to as well. But there has been times where I've gone into a game and be like, yeah, no, this, I'm going to pick something else because it's better, right? So you've got the ability to scout, infiltrate, tank hunter, counterattack, move through cover, and adamantium well. So out of these, really, for me, I build my army with a lot of Volkites, a lot of heavy Volkites, the big ones, the Calverins. And so I like Tank Hunter for my army, because if everything gets Tank Hunter, it applies in close combat, shooting. So Strength 6 Tank Hunter you might not think is great, but anything Armor 12 you can easily glance to death, especially when you're using Volkites, like 20 to 40 shots in a squad, depending on what you're using with Tank Hunter, you're probably going to rip anything apart. And there's been many times where I use jet pikes, I deep strike them down, and guys with knights are like, oh yeah, whatever, no big deal, right? And then they shoot, there's 20 shots and shoot, and you hit 15, maybe more with preferred enemy. And then with 15, even if you take the math, that's 5 glances right there with Tank Hunter, right? And knights only have 6. So when you can drop a knight almost, if not drop one, in a single turn of shooting from a squad, it's really, really good. And there's been many times where, being able to outflank guys and then being able to use the Tank Hunter rule really well has paid off. The other one that I love is counterattack. If you're going to be getting into close combat, counterattack is awesome, especially in smaller games like Centurion, Mortalis, just so good. If you want to run their coils of the Hydra, the other one that a lot of them will use is infiltrate, right? Because that's one of the things that you have to do. Legion specific units, so they have the Saboteur. I won't really go tons into him. He is really nice. He's kind of like there's an almost equivalent
Vigilator.
Vigilator. That's right. But he has to be lone. He can't be your compulsory HQ. He must begin the reserve, and then when you bring him on, he can either do a automatic penetrating hit at AP2, or he does D6 Strength 6 AP3 hits on a unit, and then you can't take cover saves. And then you have some restrictions of what you can equip him with. So that automatic penetrating hit is kind of cool. A lot of times, you're not really expecting to blow something up because it's only a 16% chance, but you can, stun something that you really don't want to fire next turn, for example, or something like that. Again, do I use them very often? No. But I have seen people use them, and I've played against it actually at the tournament. I played and my opponent had one, and yeah, I don't remember. I think he stunned one of my Venator tanks, which was effective. So yeah.
I think he's a one-trick pony. I think.
Unfortunately, I think so too. Especially since he's not like a compulsory HQ. So again, you talk about like fun-wise, yeah, he's a cool character to run. If you want him to be very effective, you're probably not going to find him being able to do that. Their unique Rite of War is really, really cool. So the Coils of the Hydra is awesome. So you can either add +1 to go first or seize the initiative. Or reroll seize the initiative, sorry. So I mean, normally that's not a huge deal, but if you're running Alfarius, who seizes on 4+, being able to reroll that almost guarantees you that you're going to be going first.
Yeah.
Enemy reserve rolls are -1, so that's awesome, especially if you combine it with something else, like -2, like people aren't putting stuff in reserve if they have a choice, right? The other one that's awesome as well is the Rewards of Treason. So if you're running this, you may take another Legion's special units, but they gain your Adeptus Astar or Legion Astartes Alpha Legion special rule. So
crazy.
So that's awesome. So you could run any other army. So this also I really enjoy because I always want to paint other armies, right? And this way I actually have the ability to pick a specialty unit and paint it, right?
So besides yourself, how often, actually this is more for the group, how often have we seen that?
Maybe the first league?
Yeah, not very often.
I know you used tyrant terms against me one time.
Yeah. Actually, no, that's not true. So there was a time where we first started where none of us actually had 30k models. So I'm going to talk about us actually playing and representing majority of our armies. This was a couple of reasons. One, we didn't have the money to afford, an entire army right away, but we all wanted to play. So we were using 40k Marines as 30k Marines.
Yeah.
Using regular Terminators and
2012.
That's right. That's exactly it. Right. So there was one league that we did, and I played Alpha Legion. And what I did is every time I played an opponent, I would take one of his units and play with that unit against them. Now, I didn't have the models. So sometimes I was like, I remember talking to Dan. I'm like, hey, you've got some, what are the Iron Hand Terminators? Medusans?
Oh, the Gorgons.
Gorgons, yes. And I was like trying to borrow them and the Furies and to use against my opponent, right? And sometimes I wasn't able to, but it was actually a lot of fun. It was awesome. And I really want to be able to do that again. So I think other than that, I haven't seen it very often. And I'll tell you why. I think this is why. You must take an additional compulsory troop choice. And then infantry squads that don't have dedicated transports have to, or the ability to infiltrate, you can't take. So with the exception of the Vigilator, you can only take a single consul, which isn't a huge deal, and then no fortifications or other space for the allies. So I think the big deal here is the extra troop choice is a big tax to pay, especially when your tax is 3 tactical squads.
No.
And then unless they have infiltrate or have a dedicated transport, right? So if you were using your mutable tactics, you have to pick infiltrate, or you have to be buying rhinos for each one of these squads, right? So I think if you want to play Coils of the Hydra, it's a very expensive tax to start that army, right? And we all know that tactical Marines are expendable in this game, right? So if you want to play for a lot of fun, absolutely. It's an awesome right. I love it. I've played it, right? But if you want to be at least a little competitive, I find the tax a little bit outweighs the bonuses and benefits of the coils.
I think part of the problem too was Alfarius not having infiltrate.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's right. So he doesn't have infiltrate, and so with your units getting infiltrate, there was issues with you deploying them with Alfarius. So even if I take like Butchers, for example, or Tyrant Siege Terminators, I have an issue deploying him with them because they'll have infiltrate, right? In that case, you get around it by not taking that mutable tactic and buying everything transports, right? But it definitely gives you also it limits what you can also get, because if you're not taking infiltrate, then units that can't get transports or deep strike you can't actually get, right? So that kind of limits your army as well. So I think if you're running it, like, you have to be taking other people's units, right? I don't know. If you're doing that, then you're trying to be competitive. I feel like the tax outweighs anybody else's unit that you can pick, right? Like, yeah, Larnian Terminators are good. There's Segment Terminators are better. The Siege Tyrant Terminators are better, point for point, let's say. But does the tax outweigh that? I don't think so, personally. But it is a lot of fun to use, a lot of fun to play, especially when your opponent comes and you're using his units against them. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome, and that's what I would do personally. Like, I don't think I would ever bring like Salamander Fire Drakes and just run them normal, because I've seen that a lot, because they used to be like D and
top dog,
3+ invulnerable Terminators, right? And then you would just use them in your army. I don't think so, because if you want that style of army, run Salamanders, right? Yeah. Like, Alpha Legion are more like, if I'm playing Bill, I'm going to be bringing Tyrant Siege Terminators. If I'm playing Andy, I'm going to bring Ultramarine Wussies or something. I don't know.
Whatever they're called.
The Tyrant Siege Terminators. That's what they're called.
Coleman Terrace.
So
yeah.
So just so people understand, like, how good that can be. So when you take Tyrant Siege Terminators,
yes,
and you're taking, so does your whole army have to do infiltrate, or can you get the Tank Hunter still?
So depends. Again, so the limitation is if your units. So the limitation says, infantry squads that do not either have a dedicated transport or ability to infiltrate or deep strike may not be chosen. Okay. So, for example, if I'm running the Tyrant Siege Terminators in a Land Raider with Alfarius and everything else, and I don't need to take infiltrate as a mutable tactic, absolutely I can pick Tank Hunter, and that means those Tyrant Siege Terminators would gain Tank Hunter.
Yeah. So it's
right?
Like getting
so would the entire army.
Free.
That's right. Right. So would the entire army. Right. So that's kind of the good thing too. And I mean, you can talk about other units too that Tank Hunter would be really good with as well. I mean, counterattack is great too, to be honest. Right. Like being able to take a charge and, is really nice. Yeah. But they would use any Legion-specific abilities that you would give them, for example. So if an army gives them something, they would lose that. But they get Legion, Astartes Alpha Legion, which is great. So they get Venom Spheres, which are kind of interesting. They're like assault grenades, right? And they give Hammer of Wrath special rule to units that have them. Models that have them, sorry. And then also if you throw them, it's 8-inch range, strength 3, assault 2, blast 3 inches, one shot, like a 3-inch blast. I've never thrown one. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I do use of course, assault grenade, and I try to remember the Hammer of Wrath special rule. Like Alfarius gets them, so when he charges in, he does get Hammer of Wrath. I do sometimes forget. You are able to also buy the Venom Sphere as well, right? Power Daggers. Power Daggers are cool because that's an ability that I love. So any character model with the Legion Astartes Alpha Legion special rule may take a Power Dagger in addition to the normal weapons for 5 points. So Power Dagger is strength is user -1, AP 3, rending, but the best thing about this is the specialist weapon.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I really, really like, because it being a specialist weapon is really cheap extra attack to pair with a Power Fist, Chain Fist, Paragon Blade, wherever you use it. It gives you that extra attack. So it's really, really cheap, and all your characters can get it. Right?
It doesn't replace a weapon either. It literally just says a character can buy this weapon.
Yep. They take a Power Dagger in addition to their normal options,
Because Terminators usually get the problem of only holding one weapon at a time kind of thing.
That's right.
And then also now you can buy Terminators, you can give them the Power Dagger.
Which is definitely what I do, right? For my Harrower, as I mentioned earlier, Larnian Terminators. I give him a Chain Fist and a Power Dagger, and that Power Dagger is that extra attack, right? So now he has 4 attacks base, which is really neat, right? We kind of touched a little bit on the Headhunters. I mean, they're 5 ballista skill. They're really good, for what they do, right? For shooting infantry, right? They're great. Larnian Terminators, again, I really like. A couple of weird things about them is they can have the conversion beamer, which, I mean, I don't think you would ever run because you have to sit back and fire it.
Yeah, it's
right?
such a weird option for them.
I've only ever seen
weapons skill 5.
Yeah, exactly. But the Plasma Blaster is awesome, right? So you can buy them a Plasma Blaster. They do have Stubborn. They do start with Power Axes, which I've never used. I always upgrade to Power Fists, which bothers me a lot because the models come with Power Axes. And in order to switch to Power Fists, I have to do some green stuff work, which I'm not comfortable with. So I haven't actually done it yet. But I do like the Volkite Chargers. Yeah, technically you pay more for it in the points, but it is really nice. Like 15-inch range, 2 shots, strength 5, is awesome.
Yeah, getting shot by those is never fun.
Yeah, it's really nice.
If you ever faced Armin's army, there's a lot of Volkite.
I do. Well, they clearly are meant for Volkites, right? Like even in the stories, they talk about them having Volkites. Like they're very well equipped legion, right? Seems like the Emperor spent a lot of money on that legion and gave them a lot of resources. So they, I figured I would use them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right?
double the cash.
They get double the budget. Yeah. Characters. So what do we got? We got Dynat. Dynat's a cool character. He's like a Praetor style. He has his Hammerhead Assault if he's a Warlord, so if you're not running him with Alfarius. Did I make a lot of noise here? Sorry. So with his Warlord trait, he gains Deep Strike and may reroll the Deep Strike Scatter on the turn it arrives. Right? So, and in addition to another unit, infantry unit. So you can put him with like a Terminator squad or something and have him Deep Strike down. He's really, really cool. He has a harrowing ability. So while in the enemy deployment zone, all units with the Legion of Studies Alpha Legion Special Rule, as well as the Alpha Legion Dreadnoughts, may reroll sweeping advance rolls and add +1 results when they inflict on the vehicle damage table. So that's really, really interesting. So a lot of people will combine him with the Saboteur. And then because the Saboteur infiltrates, they infiltrate him to the enemy's deployment zone, and then they do 1 automatic penetrating hit. So now that's not AP2, it's technically AP1. You get +2 on the roll off, right? So it's a little bit better chance of actually destroying or doing serious damage to something. He comes with
Sorry, I was gonna say where you could see it being really greasy is that Suicide Veteran Squad with all combi meltas.
Yeah.
Or like a deployment zone being potentially better than AP1.
Yeah, or like Orbital Assault Army or something like that, where you can really just come down in his deployment zone and like massacre the opponent's army, right? He comes with a Thunderhammer and a Power Sword, which is a weird combination, but I mean it's a cool model if you see them. And then he has the regular stuff that a Praetor would get.
He's +1 wound though, isn't he?
He's 4 wounds, yeah.
And he also gets the ability to mix his weapons in combat?
Yeah, he has a weapon mastery, so he can split between the Power Sword and the Thunderhammer. Nice. Again, he's a good character. He's 200 points. He is a little pricey though, right? When you think about it. But he is a good Praetor if you want to run him as your Warlord, right? Next one is the Exodus. So that's the Assassin. Pretty cool. I think we've talked about him a little while back. He isn't your compulsory choice. He's a lone killer, so he can't join units except reconnaissance squads or Alpha Legion headhunters. He has that rifle that is either Salvo 2-4 or Heavy 1, which is pretty cool. I mean, he gets lots of abilities. If you want to run headhunters and him, it's kind of cool, right? It's fluffy. I've never heard of them talk about a character like this in the stories,
Right.
Except maybe Omegon. Like, if anybody I would think would like snipe people out, I would think it would be like Omegon. So, but I don't actually know. Like, he's definitely not Omegon. So,
we just don't know.
He's a little underpriced for Omegon. And then Alfarius.
I don't know if you have book 6 for I forget his name. He's like a Delegatus character.
Yep.
I can't remember his name.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Thor, I think his name is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's somewhere over there. Right. But yeah, you're right. There's another character.
Well, basically his ability is he's allowed to pick one warlord trait from the strategic. That's basically his
nice.
gimmick, right? So he's basically just a Delegatus. He's still 2 wounds. He's like, I think 115 points or something. But what makes him good is that he can pick one warlord trait from the strategic. So
I guess
so.
Go ahead.
Alfarius.
Yeah.
I actually have not ever faced an Alfarius. Every time I have fought an opponent that's Alpha Legion, they have not had Alfarius. Which is weird, because you guys, I think you can probably count on your hand how many times you've fought me without Alfarius.
Yeah.
Because if you go to like any tournament, have you guys seen Alfarius? Like, I don't remember seeing one.
No, it's not common.
Not usually.
No.
It's usually like a super heavy comboing up with the army, or not even.
Clearly, they're doing it wrong.
Well, I mean,
don't know.
Okay, so by far, so he's 7 weapon skill, 6 strength, 6 toughness, 6 wounds, 6 initiative, 5 attacks. Okay, he's got a 2-handed weapon, so he's not getting like extra attacks or anything. Like 1-on-1, he, other than Logar untransfigured, he's the worst Primarch in close combat.
I don't know if I'd say that. He's good though. Like,
what Primarch can he beat?
Not Dorn.
Not Dorn. Dorn still beats him.
So I had to.
Not Dorn, yeah.
Oh, we're talking about the story. Yeah, that wasn't Alfarius. Dorn could never beat Alfarius. No. It actually doesn't bother me that Dorn beat him in combat. There's 2 things that bother me about that book. That Dorn outsmarted Alfarius to the point that Alfarius didn't see it coming and didn't plan for that eventuality, which is kind of weird. Like, Alpha Legion literally had like taken Terra and the whole system by surprise, but like it all hinged on Dorn leaving and not coming back.
Yeah,
like, it was just like,
them.
It was so dumb, and I was like, "You think you would also like you planned for a million contingencies, but this one, which is very likely." Like, I don't know. That's one thing I didn't like, and then the second thing I didn't like is how Dorn beats Alfarius. Is that his? Why can't I remember his name? He's like the only guy that they talk about in that whole book.
Sigismund?
No. It wasn't Sigismund.
I haven't read the book, so.
What's the character's name? They repeat the character's name constantly. There's always one now.
I haven't read that.
Either way, he like saves Dorn by getting in the way. He like sees that Alfarius was like off-footed, but then like Dorn falls for it, and he realizes that it's all a feint, and Alfarius is gonna kill Dorn, and then he like has time to process all this and jump and get in the way of Alfarius's blow just enough for Alfarius to miss. Like, I was like, no. Everything would have happened by the time you even realized what was happening. So those are the 2 things I didn't actually like. But overall, I still think Dorn should be able to beat Alfarius. Alfarius is technically by far the weakest Primarch in hand-to-hand combat. That said, though, I still constantly use him. And I mean, I just don't know why you wouldn't. So he's got 2+4+. He does come with Venom Spheres. He has a Plasma Blaster stock that's master crafted. So that's like 2 shots, master crafted. He has his Pale Sphere, his weapon. He has a Nuncio Vox, Cognitism Signum, and a Cameline Cloak. Cameline Cloak?
Yeah, Camel Cloak.
Yeah, but it's awesome. Like, you might not think that's a big deal, but he gets stealth. Yes, that's the fight.
Yeah, look at that. Awesome.
But he gets stealth, though. So, like, he gives stealth to other units that he's with. So a lot of people forget that or don't even realize. So if I take a unit and I put it in a ruin with Alfarius, they have 3+ cover. Like, that's huge. Right? The Pale Spear is awesome, too. Its strength is user, so 6.
Yeah,
AP 1.
It's that weapon that makes him good.
That's right. So AP 1 is huge against vehicles, right? It has Armor Bane. So Strength 6 Armor Bane isn't terrible, but it's not bad. Like, he can go, like, I've taken him up against knights and destroyed knights, right? Two-handed again. The other really awesome part about this weapon is it's instant death.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like, Feel No Pain, he ignores, right? The multi-wound creatures, he just, like, walks through like nothing, right?
Yeah, he kills Mechanicum.
Right? He just, like, yeah, and the Mechanicum, a lot of them have high toughness, so he has 6 strength. So if they're toughness 7, like, he's not just completely massacring them, but can still do better than a lot of other Primarchs because he just gets 1 hit. And if they fail their invulnerable save, which a lot of times isn't amazing, they're just removed, right? So that's really nice. That's really good about the weapon. And I do like the AP1 because it makes him really good against vehicles.
Well,
right?
instant death alone is a nice rule because not many Primarchs have instant death on their weapon. And not many are swinging at strength 10 either, right? Like, majority's between, like, strength 7 and 8, usually, unless you're Perturabo with a hammer or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, and it is really nice, because it also ignores Feel No Pain. So if he's fighting something else with Feel No Pain, you don't get to take it, right? Even though it's only strength 6 on his weapon. Where I really think Alfarius really does a lot for my army is he's got his Sire of the Alpha Legion special rule. So it says, Alfarius has the preferred enemy everything. He starts with counterattack, so him and his unit automatically get counterattack as well. Move through cover. So this one's huge. A lot of people don't realize regular Primarchs don't have move through cover. He gets move through cover. That also is conferred to his unit. So if you're charging through cover, he doesn't get the -2 penalty, right? -2 to movement, which there's, I think, only a couple of Primarchs out there that have that ability.
I think it's just him.
No, I think I want to say the Raven Guard.
Corax,
yeah, I think Corax might too. But it a lot of people, like, don't notice that, but that's huge. He gets Scout Crusader, and these only apply when his presence has been revealed, which, I mean, we can go over that. In addition, all models with the Legion Astartes special Alpha Legion special rule in the same army as Alfarius gain the preferred enemy everything special rule while he's on the table and revealed. So this is the one where I feel that is like a huge multiplier. Because when you're firing, you're rerolling once to hit. When you're wounding, you're rerolling once to hit. When you're hitting in close combat, you're rerolling once to hit. You're wounding in close combat, you're rerolling once to wound, right? So, and it's everything. So that I find makes a huge difference, especially when your dice are up and down and when they're not, because overall it's just an amazing rule, like being able to reroll those ones. So the fact that he's one of the weakest Primarchs out there in close combat, I find that with that special rule, I find that personally, to me, he's one of the best Primarchs out there because it's just such a huge force multiplier. Yeah. Like, huge. Like, being able to do that. And then you build your army around it, right? Like, you look at my army. I've got Larnian Terminators. They've got 5 weapon skill. Most of the time, they're hitting on 3s, rerolling once. They've got 8 strength in close combat. They're wounding on 2s, rerolling once. how many times have I gone into a combat and all of a sudden with my 5 Terminators, I do 20 wounds to a guy, right? Like that's awesome, right? Also, I like those Volkites.
7th edition Eldar.
Yeah,
level.
Yeah, but we talk about Volkites.
Rerolls on rerolls.
Yeah, I've got strength 6 Volkites. I'm hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s, right? Like I get a lot of wounds with those weapons. And it helps a lot. It helps a lot to have that preferred enemy, right?
So I know even just at the event when we were playing and I played with my wolves, charging 30 Grey Slayers into Alfarius and his Terminators, and the rerolls were what were saving you. You were rolling so many rerolls. It was insane, man. Like, turned the tide.
So he has this ability, One of Many, which is kind of cool. So after both sides have deployed, I can write down you write down which unit he can go in. There's a bunch of rules as to which units that you can choose. So what happens is then you can reveal him at the start of any of the controlling player's turns from the second turn onward. You can reveal him. So you take a model, you replace him, you take him off, and you replace him with Alfarius. So you lose that model. There's a bunch of other rules. So if you don't reveal him by turn 5, he's automatically revealed, right? So it's a really cool rule. I never use it. The reason I never use it is because if you're running like a very expensive unit of Terminators, for example, to replace one model with him is very pricey, right? On the other hand, even if that's not your care, I find that you can't bring him in on the first turn. So his ability, like the preferred enemy special rule, is huge, and I don't want to lose that first turn of shooting with that ability, right? So I find that it's just I don't know. I just don't really like to use it because most likely you will be able to figure out where he is anyways. And if I'm surprising you, then I'm probably putting it in a unit where he's not going to be most effective at. And in addition to that, I'm giving up a whole turn of preferred enemy, which, 30k is a first strike game. There's very few armies that aren't alpha strike. And so when you're playing against them, you want to be the one to, fire first, and you want to do as much damage as possible.
So if you use that rule and he's with, say, a squad of Terminators and they all die, is he dead?
No. So it says, should a unit falls back, it immediately rallies when he's out. Let me just tell you right now. It does talk about it here. I'm just trying to find it.
It's like a big long paragraph on what he can and can't do.
Okay.
I think he just has to come in from reserve.
Oh, it's not
I think that's what I remember.
Is yeah. If the unit is destroyed and he can't be placed for some reason, then he's placed in ongoing reserves, right? So I mean, imagine that happening. You pick like a headhunter unit because you want a surprise, and you just decide that you're like, oh, I'm going to kill those guys, and then I have to go into ongoing reserves and then come in from a table edge.
Yeah.
And So that's
your best to bring him out right away.
I like to bring him out right away personally. Yeah. His other awesome abilities are he's got the Insidious Mastermind, he's called. So he seizes on a 4+, right? So him and Horus are the only ones that do this. And being able to seize on a 4+ is awesome for 2 reasons. One, you have a 50-50 chance of going first even when you're not going first. But in addition to that, your opponent is always worried about you seizing initiative. So a lot of times the opponent has that choice. If they're deploying first, are they going to deploy their normal, alpha strike way? Or are they actually going to deploy a little conservatively just in case? Because it's a flip of a coin at that point, whether you're going to go first. So there's been lots of times where I've had opponents like deploy very aggressively. I deploy reasonably aggressively, and then I seize initiative. And then, the game a lot of times can be over first turn. Right, because they're not hiding, they're not using angles to get cover, things like that. Right, so
when
When I remember playing in the league, I remember because you were playing mostly with the original league we first started out, because you were playing with the Coils of the Hydra, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I remember us talking about how to beat that because you'd re-roll a 4+, right? Yeah. For seizing, and it always seemed better to give you the first turn and try to seize yourself.
Yep.
Exactly, right? Because then you at least know where my units are. You can counter deploy, and then and a lot of times I also, even without the Coils of the Hydra, I'll let my opponent deploy first.
Yeah.
Because I want to see where they go. So then I can counter their deployment, right? Depending on the army, of course. If they have a massive Alpha Strike list, then maybe I still want to deploy first if I can counter it. But yeah. This other ability, units arriving with outflank can add D3 inches to their movement on the turn they arrive. This is kind of cool. Not used tons because it adds to your movement. So if you're like a vehicle and you move like over 12, you can't really disembark. Also, if you're using that ability, if you're in a vehicle, right, things like that. But it is cool, right? Because you can get that extra little bit of movement. The other one that really neat is if you bring on a unit from reserve and I have the same type of unit, I can choose to bring it on instead. So for example, Bill, you run veterans, I run veterans, right? You roll 4+ and you bring your units in reserve, then I can say, nope, that's okay. I'm going to roll. So if I roll and I successfully roll a 4+, you don't actually bring your unit during your turn. I bring my unit on during your turn. And I would just bring them on. So that's really, really neat. It doesn't apply tons. Mainly it happens with like veterans and maybe javelins, right? Because a lot of people run those. But it's still neat. It's happened a few times, and it's really nice to see the opponent's face when they're like, oh, I just rolled that reserve, and I have to roll it again. And now my unit's on the board, so that in my turn, they're free to move and do whatever they want, right? So
yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that roll. Against
it's happened a few times, but again, it has to be like a similar type of unit, right? So unless you're running like veterans and units that I have, it doesn't really apply, right? And then Alpha Legion units that enter play using this rule may still outflank and gain the movement bonus for that rule. So, but can be targeted by your interceptor units. So it's kind of cool, right? Like I can still, like if my veterans have outflank, for example, they can come and outflank, things like that, right?
That's awesome.
His armor is 2+, 4+, and then the spear we kind of went over. The other big thing too is, in addition, his armor provides immunity to poison and fleshbane.
Ooh.
Right? We were just talking about the lion.
No.
Not that it makes a huge difference because the lion's sword
You're not going to be
still
using the
strength
the
of
sword.
scene. Yeah.
You're still not winning that fight, but it is nice because there are units out there with poison and fleshbane that he would ignore those rules, right? So again, he's 415 points, so he's by far not the most expensive Primarch, but he's not cheap either, right? I really like running him because if anybody has played against me or played my army, like what I do. I have a very good combination of units that work very well together, and I use all those rules in combination. I do run a bunch of vehicles, but majority of the army of mine that does damage are my troops, infantry, jet bikes, things like that. So yeah. I really like I really like Alpha Legion. I think they're an awesome army. I think mutable tactics, being able to choose at the beginning, is really, really cool. I think their fluff is awesome. I think the ability to play different armies is really, really cool. I like them too because unlike other legions, which tend to be very focused on certain things, right? So, Blood Angels tend to be very Assault Marine oriented. White Scars tend to be very fast and bike oriented and jet bikes and things like that, right? I find that Alpha Legion don't necessarily have that one thing, but they talk about them being able to mimic and do almost anything they want. So kind of like Dark Angels, right? Like Dark Angels were the first. They had to do everything. So I kind of feel like the 20th Legion is similar to that, is that if I want to build an army, there's no way in fluff that somebody would be able to come to me and tell me, well, that this is not an Alpha Legion army, right? Because I would go and disagree with them, right? And that's another reason why I like them, is because they kind of, I should be able to pull anything and still be fluffy with them. So, yeah. Yeah.
No, that's good, man. Like, definitely a nice overview for anyone who's interested in Alpha Legion or plays currently. Like, it's definitely good info for them to hear. And again, to touch on, if you guys have questions that you want answered, like on the beginning of the next podcast, let us know, because there's time we can make for that. If you have questions like for Armin specifically on a build or something with his army too, like let us know.
Or if you disagree with me,
yeah,
please shout it out. Like, I've had times where people have told me something and I'm like, I never considered that. And then I incorporate it secretly into my next army. That definitely happens. So if you think that I'm wrong on something, please tell me, because I want to.
We should put his personal number down there so people can just call him.
Yeah. Facebook, please. No, yeah, absolutely. Like, if you guys disagree with me, please do, because there's lots of times where, I'll hear something and I'm like, that's awesome. I like that. That's better than what I was thinking, right? Yeah. Because I learned through playing. Like, I read, I can tell which army's pretty good or not, but a lot of times I'll play and I'm like, yeah, I like this better, or I don't like this, right? So.
No, that's great.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I guess that kind of wraps up this round for this particular podcast. And next time we'll be going over Raven Guard. So that should be pretty sweet.
I won't talk nearly as much.
No. Well, I don't think most of us will on that one, but yeah, definitely. Thank you for joining us. If you like what we're doing, please like, share, subscribe. Also comment, chime in if there's stuff that you want us to talk about other than, just the Legions. If you have questions about games, events, whatever, let us know. And yeah, thank you for joining us, guys.
Cheers, guys.
See you.